This is in response to Billy's talking points memo from Wednesday, June 10th, 2015, back to Iraq. Now, everyone knows that we're sending 450 trainers to Iraq. They're probably going to Anbar province. And Billy and all of the right-wing people are just in a tizzy about the whole thing. Now, let's get to some important things about this. Is that number one, there aren't a lot of good options that are going on out there. Number two, sending in American troops is not the answer. And number three, this is part of the unintended consequences that you get when you invade a sovereign country that had nothing to do with 9/11 and think that it was going to be the example of democracy in the Middle East. That's the unintended consequences. So it's almost like a repeat record for Billy all the time. When President Obama talked about getting a strategy, not having a final strategy, finalizing the strategy, what we know is that Iraq is not capable of putting an army together and leading that army into battle against ISIL. And the United States is not going to do that type of leading. So, that has been going on for a long time. Now, a lot of the neocons and the Republicans will say that it was pretty safe back there in 2009. And no, it wasn't very safe back there in 2009. It's just that we weren't reporting nearly any of it. The same problems were going on, and possibly there weren't quite as many people being killed. But let's remember, in that 2006, 2007 time frame, when the surge went in, which did not work, number one, Muqtada al-Sadr had his army stand down. Number two, the Sunni awakening was going on in Anbar province, where they decided to work with the Americans. And remember, the Americans also paid them to get rid of Al-Qaeda. And of course, they just went to Syria, and they just went underground for a while. And what was once Ba'athist became Al-Qaeda, became ISIL. All right, that was that number 2 or 3? Number 3, the amount of people who were exiting the country had pretty much stabilized. I believe there's about 1.5 million people that left, and that another 1.5 million, they were exiled, let's just say, and then another 1.5 million or more were displaced within Iraq itself. So that once where there was mixed neighborhoods of Sunni and Shia, then became enclaves. One became Sunni and one became Shia, and they had finished all of that type of stuff. So, and there were a lot of things that were going on. The surge did not work, and all Al-Qaeda did was go underground for a while and metastasize as it has right now. So, where are we right now with all this? Billy thinks, ISIL is so bad, they're as bad as the Holocaust, they're as bad as the Third Reich, and they would do all those things. Yeah, maybe they would, but they're landlocked right now, and they're not going to get there. But Billy wants to bring in the fear factor of all of that. Now, the next thing he talks about, which is the first time I've heard this, I believe, is he's saying that we should go into Raqqa, I believe it's spelled R-A-Q-U-A, in Syria, which would again be invading a sovereign country that's having a civil war. We don't like what's going on there, but we would, and then again, there would be de facto, would we own it? Would we own Raqqa? Would we have a separate country established there, separate from Syria? Would it be part of a new Kurdistan, let's just say, for the Kurds? So that's a pretty outrageous statement to come out, and of course that would be back to that you break it, you own it, because Billy says we can just go in there and just take over, no problem. Well, we own the whole place, and that's a very, very, very scary option that Billy's putting on the table right there. Extremely scary. He's also talking about arming the Kurds. Now, I myself would I think that the Kurds should be armed more. I know that the Germans are arming them some. They're giving them anti-tank missiles, which are effective in use against the suicide bombers, because I did see a video of that, and what they do is they have a lot of metal work on the outside protecting the engine and everything. They go into a town and blow it up, and these aren't just Toyota Corollas, or a Nissan Sentra or something like that. These are the big trucks like Timothy McVeigh did when he did Oklahoma City. But let's remember something else. The Iraqis don't really want to arm the Kurds, and the Turks don't really want the Kurds to be armed. Now, I think we need to work around that type of thing, but we have a very long strategic relationship with Turkey for a long time. They just had an election, not sure if that can affect anything right now. They've been in a de facto war with the Kurds for about 20 years or more. So there's a lot going on. And for Billy to just come out with these really, I would say, egregious statements indicating that all we have to do is go into Iraq and take it off, all we have to do is go in and arm the Kurds, that Obama is weak, he's ineffectual, he's ineffective, he has no plan, he doesn't have the will to fight, he doesn't have to want to do any of this stuff, is really something that just is going on in that little vacuum in Billy's head and all the neocons. And I don't know where they think that military might is going to be the answer, because let's remember, if we did go into Raqqa, we'd have to take it over. How long would we be there? 20 years, 30 years? Maybe to the neocons that's okay, because we still have troops in Germany, we still have troops in Korea, but shortly after each of those wars, there was stability came in fairly quickly after that. There's not really been any stability at all in Iraq. And to think that if we went into Syria and say that we'd have to be there 30 to 50 years, and of course, at the same time, we'd be occupiers. And of course, that is something that their religion does not want them to have. No occupiers. They'll do it. So remember, Matarik al-Sadr did a lot of bad stuff to the Americans in Baghdad, not because he was grateful we were liberated from Saddam, but because we were occupiers and he wanted us out. So I'd say a terrible showing by Billy. Immature is not the word, but just he's so far off base, so far off in his concept of what actually can be achieved in there, especially after the catastrophic losses that we have taken in Iraq, and which can never be replaced. And to say that we can just go into another country in terms of Syria and arm the Kurds and everything will be hunky-dory. Again, I'd like to see Billy's plan. I'd like to see a plan where he says, this is how many men we need, our men and women. This is how many losses we expect to have in terms of death. This is how much money we expected to have. This is how much time we expect to occupy these countries. This is how many deaths that we expect to have after we have taken over those countries. And this is how many years we think we're going to need to be in those countries until there is stability there. That's what I'd like to see from Billy. I'd like to see his strategy, his plan.